You're convinced you have SIBO, and now you're ready to take action. But what's your next step? Where do you go? How do you follow up on this? That's what this video is going to take a look at. And what I'm going to share with you is a concrete, proven plan that is effective against small intestinal bacterial overgrowth and more. But we're going to focus on small intestinal bacterial overgrowth here. So before I get into the specifics on the solution, I need to give you some context. I need to give you history so you can appreciate what I'm going to share with you as the solution and really how effective it can be. So roughly 2014, a study was published. And what this study looked at was the effectiveness of herbal combinations in SIBO, in individuals with SIBO, but it also looked at the effectiveness in comparison to the antibiotic that is commonly recommended for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, which is rifaximin. Now, as you can appreciate, there are generally two schools of thought that are looked at here when it comes to dealing with small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. The first is the antibiotic route, which is, again, rifaximin is the common recommendation there, but that's not the only one. And then the other avenue that you can pursue here is a non-pharmaceutical or a botanical route. Now, I'm assuming that you're here because you're have more of an interest in the non-pharmaceutical route. And what I want to share with you on this, first of all, is that overall, not a lot of data has been accumulated in the scientific literature on the use of botanicals to manage small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. However, this landmark study that I'm mentioning on this topic in 2014 really provided some great insight into what the benefit of botanicals are and just how effective they can be. And I'll talk about also why that is. Essentially, what this study showed is that in individuals, if you compare groups of individuals that were on rifaximin versus individuals that were on the combination of botanicals, that the combination of botanicals outperformed rifaximin. Not a massive outperformance, but they did outperform. But maybe what is more important to take away from this study is that when you look at the individuals who did not respond to rifaximin, typically the course of action for those individuals as a follow-up is to take up to 3 antibiotics as the follow-up to try to, again, resolve the small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. However, what the study leaders did on this, what the researchers did, is instead of providing 3 antibiotics as a follow-up in the rifaximin group, they gave them the botanicals. And what they saw is that the botanicals could act as what's known as a rescue remedy. What that means is that when, in this case specifically, when rifaximin, the antibiotic, did not perform to the level that the researchers would and the participants would have hoped, that the botanicals were a viable option as a follow-up. Which, if you think about this in the big context, that opens the opportunity for botanicals to be a primary consideration of how to manage small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. It was more effective than rifaximin at the outset, but it could also be used to follow up rifaximin when rifaximin didn't perform at the level that it was anticipated. So what do we have as the option to do that? Well, here's the thing. It's not one botanical that does this. And this is a very, very key point when we start to think about antimicrobials as a whole, antibiotics or non-antibiotics. And this is one of the reasons that the botanicals are so effective in this context. And what we see here is that because we're not using an isolated botanical, a single botanical, for example, just oil of oregano, because we're not just using oil of oregano and we're using combinations of botanicals, in this scenario, we have a synergistic effect that starts to utilize multiple mechanisms of action that should one mechanism not be effective against the bacterial species, there are many other mechanisms that come into play that can inhibit the growth of that bacteria. Unfortunately, when we compare this to the antibiotic, even though there's a place for those antibiotics are a single mechanism. So that pigeonholes them that if they don't work, if that mechanism that they utilize does not work, there's not a backup mechanism in place to be able to help overcome that overgrowth. So with that mindset, here's what I want to share with you. What I want to bring to you as a solution is what's known as the SBO Kit, the Small Bowel Optimization Kit. Now, here's what's really unique about this kit. The study that I mentioned, and I'll bring this back in a minute, the study that I mentioned, the exact formulations that were used in this study are in the SBO Kit. And there is an addition of an emulsified oil of oregano in here, which has its own clinical studies behind it for other species like Candida and parasites. And Candida is relevant in this conversation because it's not uncommon for some individuals to have an overgrowth of Candida, an overgrowth of fungus at the same time that they have SIBO. We call that SIFO with an F versus SIBO, but the two can exist together. That is very possible to have happen. Now, let me show you, I want to take this kit and I want to show you exactly what's in this kit. All right, so we've got the kit open now. And as I open this kit, we've got three components to this. The first thing that we have here is the ADP. This is the emulsified oil of oregano. And what you're going to find with this is that this actual ingredient is the addition on top of the two that were a part of the study. And so importantly with this study that I mentioned was 2014. Well, since 2014, we're several years past that now. And as practitioners have been able to implement these products and provide feedback, what has been seen is that the addition of an emulsified oil of oregano amplifies the outcomes with the products that were a part of the study. So the ones that were a part of the study, we have a combination here known as FC-Cytal. And then the other one that was a part of this study is a product known as Dysbiocide. Now, the combination of these three products in this single kit are exactly what is necessary to be able to target SIBO. A multi-ingredient formulation that is not dependent on one single mechanism of action, but that can be utilized for a short time frame for 30 days and be effective in that 30-day time frame. Now, let me talk about how to utilize each one of these. And within your kit, you're going to find this booklet. And this booklet is going to help answer several questions for you. It's going to give you some general directions. I'll talk more about some of the specifics, diet, things like that as we continue to go forward. But in this booklet, we're gonna work to get you to the point where you're not concerned about what's going on in your small intestine. Your bowels feel better. Now, on page 9 of this booklet, towards the end, there are specific directions on how to use exactly what I'm talking about here. But I want to go through it with you, but I wanted you to know that in your kit, these instructions are specifically laid out for you here. But let me go through these with you. So with each one of these different products, you're going to take 2 of these 3 times a day of each one. So 2 3 times a day of the ADP, 2 3 times a day of the FC-Cytal, 2 3 times a day of the Dysbiocide, and you're going to do that for 30 days. And within 30 days, your overgrowth of bacteria is going to be nullified. You're going to have a significantly lower population of bacteria in your small intestine. This is often termed, interestingly enough, decontamination. So this combination of ingredients is going to decontaminate your small intestine. Now, by following this, ideally, you would want to use these away from food. So what that would look like is first thing in the morning, right when you get up, generally mid-afternoon, and then again right before you go to bed. So again, we're trying to take these away from food. Now, couple of things here These are not things that commonly pop up, but I want to go ahead and address these because I have seen these with patients. Is what happens if I can't take them with food for whatever reason that might be, or if you can't take them away from food, then take them with food. So take it with breakfast, take it with lunch, take it with dinner. In general, the antimicrobial effect is going to be enhanced, and we're going to be able to maximize that if it's away from food. But if, again, for whatever reason you can't take it away from food, take it with food. Also, what if you can't use the full dose of 2 caps 3 times a day for 30 days? The short answer to this is cut the dose down, and just as a simple starting point, cut it in half. Go to 1 capsule 3 times a day for 60 days of each product, right? So the idea here, preferentially, is that you're not going to do that. In 30 days, you want to be done with this. You should be, all of the products in here should be completely gone within 30 days, and you should not have any remaining. If you have any remaining, you missed a dose somewhere. So within 30 days, we want to completely utilize this. Now, this is, again, what's going to decontaminate, again, reduce that population of bacteria in your small intestine. And to be able to access this, I've got a link down below for you. Follow that link, and it will take you to a site known as FullScript, and FullScript is going to inventory these. They have these available, and you can purchase these directly from FullScript, and that will, within a few days, put this in your hands, and you can start to resolve your small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Okay, so that's going to be the key component to phase 1. Now, what I'm also going to share with you are ideas on how to eat, how to some other lifestyle things that you can be doing during this 30-day time frame and after, such that you're going to resolve your small intestinal bacterial overgrowth sooner and work towards preventing recurrence. So stay tuned for that information. That will be forthcoming.